car, SUV, or truck, guess what? You're in luck.
Hello and welcome to the Frontier Motor Show. This is Iven Streckel, owner of Frontier Motors, and we have been bringing the show to you for almost going on 25 years now. 1996 is when we started. So I want to thank you for tuning in. For the next half hour, we're going to be talking about what's going on in the car industry, a little bit what's going on at Frontier Motors, not that you really could care less, especially if you're not in the market for a car, but don't turn that channel because I got a lot of information for you, because you never know when you might be in the market for a car. I have so many customers that say they have been listening to the show for years and years, and they were going to buy their car. Some people keep their car for a long, long time, and with the cars being more reliable these days, of course, the average age of a car on the road is a lot older than it used to be. When I got in the car business in 1975, the average age of a car on the road was 7.5 years. Right now, it's almost 12 years, 11.9 to be exact. That means the average age of the car being 12 years old means that you haven't bought a car. The average person hasn't bought a car in 12 years, but every once in a while they'll call me up and say, I'm glad to listen to the show because when I am in the market for the car, I want to give Frontier Motors a shot at my business. And why would you do that? Well, there's a lot of reasons, and we'll get into that for a minute. But first, let's talk about what's new in the car industry nationwide. And that is the same thing that was new last month and the month before and the month before. And that is a microprocessor chip shortage in the industry. Has detuned the production in the United States by over 1 million cars so far this year. That's a big deal, folks. And I'll give you an example. Last month, the month before, F-150, for example, they build about 61,000 F-150s in 1 month. Last month, they built 25,000. So what does that mean if you want an F-150? Well, you go to the Ford store and you're not going to see a lot on the lot. What's left on the lot, a lot of them are work trucks, maybe not the best equipment, maybe not the best packages. If you're looking for maybe a Lariat, all they've got left is XLs or base models. All the good-looking ones are gone, and you walk in and you say, hey, I want to order one, and they tell you it's going to be 5 or 6 months, or they don't know when they're going to get one. And a lot of it has to do with the chip problem that's been going around. When the COVID hit, they canceled a lot of the chips because the chips a lot of times I shouldn't say a lot of times, they only last for so long because they update them so often that when they cancel them, now they can't get them back. So there's a lot of vehicles being built that aren't being able to be run because they don't have the chips to make them go. So it's a big deal right now. Might not be a big deal to you if you're not in the buying mode. But what it means to you is that when you are in the buying mode, especially if you're going to be buying a brand new car, the dealers have held their margin. Remember what it was years ago? And of course, I do the show to advise you on how to buy a new car or how to buy a used car, what you should pay for a new car, what the invoice is, what the cost is. And one of the things I always talked about is if you know what the cost of a car is, you're better able to negotiate your better deal. Well, guess what? There's no negotiating. If anything, it's the opposite. They negotiate over the initial retail price of the vehicle. I had a customer come in the other day, and I won't name the local dealer that's doing this, but they have taken their vehicles, which were selling at full list. It was a hot item, and that came out 2 years ago, and they've been selling them for full list until about 3 months ago, and now they started charging over list, and right now they're charging $4,000 over list price. So when you go there to buy a car, they might have some in inventory, but you can't get a bargain on them. The other thing they're doing also is because the new cars are flying off the shelf because there's a lot of pent-up buying. When people were, in their houses for the last year and they didn't go out a lot, they didn't fly anywhere, they didn't go out to lunch or to dinner and spend a lot of money on extra things. They've saved money, and now that the COVID is almost over, I don't want to say it's over, but it's almost over, people are going out and they're spending money, and they're spending money on cars. Right now, if we had the inventory of new cars, they'd be on track. By the end of this year, they have the best selling new car year ever, which used to be 17 some million cars. They're going to hit 18 million, but they're going to fall short of that, not because there's a lack of buyers that are out that want to buy cars, but because there's not any inventory. Some dealers, and I know some dealers personally that normally stock 300 to 400 cars, they're down to below 100 cars in inventory. And that also filters down to the used cars. So what happens is if you can't buy a new car, well, Frontier Motors' claim to fame over the last 25 years, I always talk about that. If somebody was going to ask me, what do we specialize in? And I would say that we really don't specialize in any particular make and model. For example, we don't specialize in Corvettes or Mini Coopers or sports cars or pickup trucks. We sell every make and model. And normally we have between 300 and 400 cars in inventory. But I would say that we specialize in the alternative to new. What that means is we have a lot of cars in stock that are like new, some of them as little as 10 miles, 15 miles, 200 miles. And the average, I would say, being maybe in the 10,000 to 15,000 mile range, which again is the alternative to new. Well, what happens when they don't have any new cars, people come and they buy our cars. Matter of fact, last month was the best month we've ever had since we've been open in the car business, which means a lot of cars flew off our shelf. And one of the reasons that was like that was, other than the fact that we save you money over a brand new car, especially now that the new cars are being marked up to at least list price, if not over list price, is the fact that people will now look at an alternative used car. The used car market has also been hit by this shortage, which means the prices have come up. Now, the good thing about that is, if you have a vehicle that you want to get rid of and you want to do the Dave Ramsey thing, and that is liquidate, perhaps maybe get out of debt, perhaps maybe you're a 3-car family and you want to reduce that down to 2, or maybe 2 down to 1, or maybe some of the few people out there that can make do without a car, take an Uber or get yourself a bicycle or a moped and really get out of debt. Right now is a really good time to sell, because Frontier Motors is paying top dollar for good condition cars. And these don't have to be cars that are 6 months old or 12 months old, even 2 years old. These can be cars that are 10 and 12 and 13 years old. As long as they're in good condition, we're going to pay you good money for them. One of the reasons that we would prefer buying from a private individual like yourself, if you are in the market to sell, is because we don't have to travel to the auctions. And a lot of the auctions are still closed because of the COVID, or they're only doing simulcast sales, which means that they're doing it all by computer and camera only. So our buyers aren't allowed to go to the auctions. So some of the auctions are open, but the amount of cars that we used to be able to buy from the auctions have dwindled down to about probably 25 to 50% of what we normally would buy, which means that we are short on vehicles. So instead of putting your vehicle on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or Auto Trader or Cars.com, I was worried a little bit about people coming over to the house. A lot of people think they can negotiate because you're a private individual. They want to take your car, maybe take it for a day or so and get it inspected, so you don't know what they're doing with your car, and you can't take off work to go sit at a technician's or mechanic's place waiting hours for them to inspect that particular vehicle. And sometimes they're, of course, going to want to negotiate. They're going to want you to finance it. Sometimes they'll even have a trade-in, that they're going to have to sell first. So to make it easy, not to mention getting paid, some of the scams going on are make your head spin. So I always get a little bit nervous when people say, well, I'm going to, it's one thing if you're going to sell something that's $25 on Facebook Marketplace. It's another thing if you're going to sell something that's $25,000. How do you know the funds are correct? How do you know that you're even going to get your money? And heaven forbid somebody come over and want to pay you cash. So what I tell people do is, why not take a little bit of your time and drive over to Frontier Motors. We're right behind that big Buffalo on Beverly Parkway, same road as Brent Lane, 230 Beverly. And within 15 minutes, we have enough appraiser on staff that I can advertise that within 15 minutes, we can give you a buy bid in writing on your car. If you happen to have the title with you, we can cut you a check, tell you what it's worth within 15 minutes, and give you money right on the spot. Sign over the title, and away you go. Get yourself an Uber, have the wife pick you up, and you can be done. If you have a balance due on your car, depends if it's an electronic title or if the bank holds the title. If it's an electronic title, let's just say hypothetically you owe $10,000. We're giving you $20,000 for your car. We'll write you a check for $10,000 because we can apply for that electronic title online. If it's a paper title, that we would go ahead and pay your loan off for you. As soon as they send you the title, then we're going to give you the balance. We've been doing this at Frontier Motors for a long time. This is the first time that I'm spending time advertising that we buy cars. We've always done this, folks, and I think more and more dealers have jumped on that bandwagon. The difference between Frontier Motors and a lot of dealers that advertise they'll buy your car from you is that we have 4 buyers. If one's off, we always have 3 available. And when a lot of new car dealerships, and I have this from my customers' perspective, where they go to the new car dealer or the advertised dealer that says, we'll buy your car. They don't have, a lot of times the buyer is not available, or it takes just too darn long to get a buy bid. Some of them are owned by corporate offices that have to give the information to the corporate office. They have to send pictures, they have to call them, and then it takes a time for you to get that bid. Kind of a pain in the butt, especially if you want the money and you want to run. And now the fact that there is a shortage of used cars, the dollar amount that we're paying has gone up quite a bit. It's still a good deal for the buyers out there, because if you're buying a car, you're going to pay a little bit more for that car. But if you've got a car to trade, you're going to get more for the car. Very similar to what's going on in the housing industry. I'm sure everybody's heard of that, even more so than in the car industry, that housing right now is at an all-time high. So if you've got a house for sale, I've seen people sell it for thousands and thousands of dollars within hours after the listing, more than what they're asking for it. Now, the good thing is, that's great if you're selling a house. It's not so great if you're buying a house, because that means you're going to have to pay top dollar to get that new house. So what did really change? Really nothing. If your house is valued at higher and you're paying more, it's a horse apiece. If everything was inexpensive, everything dropped, let's say 15%, well, the value of the trade-in also drops 15%. So it's not a bad time to stop at Frontier Motors and let us know what you have available, or if anything, just call us. Last week, we bought 14 cars alone from private individuals, and the people were amazed. A lot of them, some of them I've seen advertising their car, and I just call them up and say, hey, the advertised price seems like a fair price. We're going to be able to sell that car at a profit. The profit that we're making on these cars is going to be a lot less, because we're paying up for the car, and we don't want to overcharge our customers for it. One of the things that we always talk about at Frontier Motors is that we don't necessarily always have the least expensive car, but we're going to have the best deal. And what I mean by the best deal is the best car for the money. Let's say hypothetically we're charging $20,000 for a particular car. And you tell me, well, I found one in Miami and I can buy that car for $18,500. Now that's a $1,500 savings. That'd be a pretty good savings to drive all the way to Miami and maybe pick out a car. But so often that's happened where the people have done that, and 4 days later they're back on our doorstep saying, hey, I'll take your car for the 20 because it's a better deal. And one of the things they found out is that when they got that car is that the condition of that car was not half as good as the condition that we have on our cars when we put them on our lot in Frontier Motors. As an example, when we buy cars at auctions, the auction rates the cars. Instead of the normal 0 to 10, they rate them from 0 to 5. 5 being about as perfect as you can get for a used car. 4 being well above average. If the car doesn't rate at least a 4 or a 4.5 above, we don't even look at the car. We don't even take time to look at that. That eliminates about 80% of the cars at the auctions. Makes my job a little easier because the auction rates all their cars. So all I have to do is plug in 4.0 and above. And then instead of having 5,000 cars available, they'll have 1,500 cars to look at. And then I bid on the ones that I need for the lot. But what I'm getting at, folks, is that condition of the car is a lot of the value of the car. And so many people come back because of the condition alone. There's other reasons why it might be a better deal. A lot of times, if the price is the same, or even a little bit higher, what if we have more equipment on the car? Especially important to me is the safety equipment on the car, which you might not care about, which I find always interesting throughout the years. Not so much now, because safety seems to be back one of the big things people are asking for. But years ago, people never asked if the car had side airbags. They just assumed it had front airbags, but they never worried about side airbags. And everybody knows that when you get a red light runner, they don't hit you in the front. They hit you in the side. So side airbags to me have always, not just now, have always been very important. And now that they have so many new safety features, it even gets more important. Things like blind spot, things like automatic collision avoidance. What about the new laser cruise control or adaptive cruise controls they have in a car, which I am in love with right now because the cars that I'm driving have those features on them. And it's so neat when you can go, for example, when you go across the bridge, the Garcon Point Bridge, you can set your cruise control on 55. Of course, everybody knows you're not going to do 55 with the backups, But if you set it for 300 feet or 200 feet for the car in front of you, your car is going to slow down to whatever their speed they're doing. If you set it at 200 feet, you can set it at 100 feet, 200 feet, or 300 feet. Let's say you set it at 100 feet. If that car slows down 25 miles an hour, your car is going to slow down 25. If that car is going to go up to 55, your car is going to stay at 100 feet. It'll go automatically up to 55. If he jams on the brakes trying to avoid something, your car will jam on the brakes to avoid him. What a great safety feature. So if you don't think that's important, I think you're kidding yourself. Maybe you don't think your life is important, but I'm sure there are other people driving your car. So I put a lot of emphasis in the safety features of the car. And if I can see two cars going at the auction, for example, and one's $1,000 more and has the safety features, I'll be the first one to pay that extra $1,000 because I think I can sell you on those safety features. I think they're important enough that you would pay more for them. And unfortunately, most of the car manufacturers are not making these features standard. They're putting some of them in the car. For example, Toyota has put the laser/adaptive cruise control standard, but they still don't have the blind spot, the automatic braking, pedestrian avoidance, things like that. They don't have the surround cameras. These are all extra features that they make extra money for. The nice thing about buying a used car, if those features, for example, cost $2,500, when I buy them, it's usually 30% on the dollar for features. For example, I'll use a sunroof as an example. If you buy a car and the sunroof is $1,000, if I buy that car 1 year old, that sunroof is going to cost me between $300 and $400 more. So those features end up being a bargain when you buy the car used, and that all talks about the depreciation. The average first-year depreciation before this COVID/chip shortage hit was about 27% in 1 year. So for example, if you bought a $100,000 car, the first year, if you wanted to get rid of that car, you would lose about $27,000. I know that's an exaggeration, but it makes the math a lot easier. And there are still a few 1%ers buying that $100,000 car, very few of them. The average being maybe last year, the average new car sold for $36,000 was the transaction price. And believe it or not, last month, the average transaction price of a new car for the first time ever was $43,000. So within 1 year, that price went up about $7,000. Isn't that crazy? On the average. Now, some of them went up more. Some of the more expensive vehicles went up more, especially things like F-250, heavy-duty Chevrolet trucks, Ram trucks, any of the heavy-duty stuff that's expensive, anywhere between the $60,000 to $100,000 range, they went up quite a bit. The regular vehicles like a Toyota Corolla or maybe a Nissan Versa, they didn't go up that much. They went up a little bit, but not that much. But the main thing that we do at Frontier Motors, folks, was still save you money over a brand new car. And the amount of money for that particular used cars might have gone up, but it's still a bargain for a new one. If the new ones went up $6,000 and the used ones went up $2,000, isn't it still a bargain to buy a used car? Especially if you have a trade-in, then your trade-in value went up also. So it makes it a lot of reasons to come to Frontier Motors. The other thing I think that sets us apart from the competition is that we're not here just to sell cars. And what I mean by that is when we started the dealership back in '96, one of the things that we talked about and still talk about this day is that Frontier Motors is not only the alternative to a new car, but it's a place to go for free advice. And what I mean by that is, let's say you decide that you want to buy a brand new car. Well, one of the things that you should know is what is your trade-in worth. And I'm not talking about book value. You can call your banker or go online and get a book value. I used to talk about, you can get the NADA, you can get the Edmunds. And I just found out that CarMax bought the Edmunds book. Now, isn't that a conflict of interest? In my mind, CarMax is the largest seller of used cars in the nation, and they bought the Edmunds book. So I wonder what control they're going to have as far as values are concerned, because Edmunds was one of the places that when you go online, you could get a used car value from Edmunds. You could get it from the Kelly Blue Book. Everybody knows what that is. And you could get it from the yellow NADA guide. Matter of fact, the banks in our area use the NADA guide. They don't use the Edmunds and they don't use the Kelly, but they use the NADA guide. So you don't need me to get that, but you could use me to get what I call a real value. A real value is reality, not book. Sometimes the books are really high based on reality. Sometimes they're really low. I always use a Jeep Wrangler as an example. If you've got a 12-year-old Jeep Wrangler, the book value on that Wrangler might say it's got a retail value of $15,000, but reality is they're selling for $18,000 to $20,000. So that Wrangler brings way more than what the book value is. One of the reasons is because the book values normally drop a little bit every single month. So month after month, they drop 2%, 1%, 3%, but the reality is a Wrangler, they hit a plateau and they don't drop anymore. Hard to find any cheap Wrangler. I've got probably 10 people right now that say, hey, if you get a $10,000 Wrangler, call me. They never get a call because there's no such thing. So you can throw the book away. And the other times that it's the opposite is on some of the higher line cars, like some of the Jaguars, BMWs, and Infinities, our Range Rovers. The book values are higher than reality, where you might book one out and the banker will tell you, well, that's a $65,000 car. But if I can buy that car at the auction for $55,000, I could bring it back and pay for the fees to transport the car and pay the auction fee, pay the reconditioning, and still make a profit and sell that car for probably $6,000 or $7,000 under the book value. And that's why what we do is we give you what I call the real value. And that's very important if you're going to buy a brand new car, because wouldn't it be nice to have an appraisal value in the back of your pocket that gives you a value that we would buy that car for, not just a book value. And we're not here to kink their deal, because you might come back and want to sell us that car. So we better give you reality. And if it's a nice car, we're going to give you what we call a buy bid, not just a book value or what we think value, but a buy bid on that car. So we'll tell you, okay, we'll pay you $20,000 for that car. So if you happen to have a used Lexus that we'll give you $20,000 for, and you decide, well, I'm going to go over to Lexus Mobile and buy a brand spanking new Lexus, and let's say you find the car, you like it, you negotiate your best possible price that you're happy with, and then you ask the used car manager, okay, now you've given me a good deal on the one I'm looking at, how much will you give me for mine? And they come back and say, well, we'll give you $18,000 for yours. Well, that's not right, is it? You've already been to Frontier, you're not buying a car from them, and they're giving you $2,000 more than the dealer you're doing business with. So what I would suggest you do is you tell that used car manager, wait a minute, I can get $20,000 from Frontier. The least that I'll take from you is $21,000. If I'm spending $40,000 or $50,000 with you, I think you should give me more money for my car, not less money than the dealer I'm not even doing business with. And that's because you've decided to buy brand new. Of course, our whole claim to fame is when you come to get your car appraised, maybe you'll kick a couple of tires when you come on the lot, and you'll see that we have a 2021 Lexus on the lot that has 4,000 miles on it. Of course, the next question you're going to have is, well, how much would you sell me yours for? And that's when we do that out the door comparison. What I mean by out the door is forget about the asking price. What if we're asking the same as a used one? As a new one? That's not the big deal. What it is what do you have to write that check for, or what do you have to finance on it? A lot of our customers pay cash, but a lot of our customers, even if they have the cash, with financing being so inexpensive these days, they'll finance the car and they'll invest their money in the stock market. So if you can get 2 or 3 or 4% money and you can make 10% or 8% in the stock market, they're going to go ahead and take a car loan on the car. So, but you know what? The price, the bottom line is still the same. It doesn't matter to me if you are going to bring me a bank check from your bank because you're financing it, or write me a check. The price is the same. As a matter of fact, some people don't know that a dealer cannot charge more for finance than they do for cash. It has to, by law, be the same. So if my out-the-door price after your trade-in is $25,000, now that includes the taxes, the dock fee, the tag transfer, the battery tax, all the garbage taxes they throw at you. I don't care if they got $2,000 worth of add-ons over the taxes. It doesn't matter. If their bottom line price is lower, then they have a better deal. If ours is lower, then we have a better deal. Especially, as I said before, let's say our price is the same on a 4,000 mile used car, but I've got $5,000 more of luxury and safety equipment. Or what if I've got a better color? Let's say you want a white one and I've got a pearl white one, and then all they got is black and blue and burgundy. I've seen people walk out because of one thing, not price, but because of the color alone. Now, I don't want that car. I don't want that color. I wouldn't drive that color if I was, for any price. I've heard that before. Matter of fact, I feel the number one reason that we lose a car deal is because we don't have the right color. And the number one reason we make a car deal is because we have the right color. Now, everything else has to fall in line. You have to have a fair price. Again, not necessarily the least expensive, but a fair price with the best condition car in the best color to your liking. Some people like purple. I saw a a lime green Corvette the other day. Now, I don't know why anybody would buy a lime green Corvette, but this person did. So they obviously walked in. The colors are all the same price because they charge for, I don't know if you know that, they charge for almost every color these days. Used to be they would charge extra for pearl white. Now they charge extra for almost every color. I saw BMW the other day. Out of 10 colors, they charged for every one except for 2. And they were like $1,000 for a color change. And if lime green is one of those colors, I think you're throwing your money away, even though there are some people that like lime green. So, folks, I'm making a really short story long. I've only got about 3 minutes left. So again, we want to mention that we are in dire need of cars. Do not put your car on any of the marketplaces. Bring it to Frontier Motors. Let us write you a check and you're done. Avoid the scams. Avoid the hassle. Take off your tag. Cancel your insurance. And you'll be surprised at how fair we are with the value of your car. Shocked. Like I said, 14 people last week, not last month, last week alone, I bought from private individuals. That's more cars than I bought at the auction. Get a free Carfax report at Frontier Motors. Do not buy a car or sell a car without a Carfax report. If you're going to sell your own car, come and get a free Carfax report. They're about $40 these days. I run them for the general public at no charge. And I'll let you know what it says. And when I do that report, it also says what the average selling price for your car is if you decide you want to sell it yourself. And that's where we come in again, that you might be surprised that we might give you close to that figure. A lot of people were willing to take a little bit less. They might not take a lot less, but they'll take a little bit less if they don't have to do the work and worry about people coming over. If you have a car that gets into an accident, we give you free diminished value reports. Your car, if it's been in a moderate or major accident, is worth less because of what the Carfax report says. Major accident reported, airbags deployed. So you can get extra money from your insurance company if it's somebody else's fault. If you smash up your own car, you can't get diminished value. But if somebody else rams into you, their insurance companies should make you whole by telling you what the new appraisal on that vehicle is going to be, even though you might not want to get rid of it. You might want to get it fixed, but you still want to get that diminished value report. And if, heaven forbid, that car is totaled, you want to get a replacement value, not book value, but what reality is for me to replace that car or another car that you might want to get. Or, well, actually, I have to give you replacement value for the one you lost because that's all the insurance company is going to give you. But don't take the book value and don't take the comparable value because you want to check with us first. I'm not saying that they're not going to give you a fair value. Some insurance companies are fair right off the bat. Some of them you got to fight. No, you don't know which one you got. And when you buy insurance, a lot of times they don't tell you what mode or model they use as far as how to dictate how are they going to replace that car and make you whole. Check out Frontier Motors on our website. Just Google Frontier Motors. We are the biggest Frontier Motors. There's about 5 in the nation. We're the largest one. So we come up first on Google. Right now, we're down to about 260 cars in inventory. Normally, we try to stock 350 to 400. As I said before, we're way low on cars, and we will pay top dollar. Most of our customers are repeat referrals. We've got such a good reputation. We really don't have to advertise that we sell cars, but we have to advertise right now that we're buying cars. Again, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Auf Wiedersehen.
Looking for the best car, SUV, or truck? Guess what? You're in luck. Frontier Motors is down the street. Got the best deals that can't be beat. Don't overpay. Come in today. Doing business the old-fashioned way. Frontier. We've got the right price. Frontier. We'll treat you mighty nice. Frontier Motors. Low overhead.